the Mapleview Animal Hospital studios, this is the WHTC Morning News with Gary Stevens and Peg McNichol on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And welcome back to the WHTC Morning News for this Tuesday, September the 8th. Tuesday mornings, we spend some time catching up what's going on in Washington with one of the two men who represent the Lake Shore on Capitol Hill. He is Republican Congressman Fred Upton of St. Joseph. He joins us from home. A little bit of a rest, Fred. Good morning. But you got some work to do in Washington this week, I'm afraid.
Well, we do. The Senate's back in session. We originally were going to have votes. We're not, so I'm doing a lot of activities back here, but we will have votes beginning Monday next week. So next week I'll talk to you from D.C. But we actually had a pretty busy weekend. You know, the Problem Solvers Caucus is fully engaged, trying to get a package together, trying to get our leaders' attention on both sides of the aisle. As schools are starting, as local governments are really needing help. This thing lasted, as we know, long beyond Easter. They really need some assistance. And so we're trying to work and very close to actually finding the sweet spot, I think, where our leaders on both sides of the aisle can say, that's not a bad package. Let's get together. Let's try to get this thing done before the end of the month, before the end of the fiscal year. And we'll see where it takes the next couple of days.
Fred, how much seriousness do you take some of the comments that have been made, especially by Senator Schumer and Representative Pelosi, Speaker Pelosi, I should say, that it's time to go back to the drawing board, give us something else. We'll only be willing to work with you halfway, but right now, no, we're going to say no to this particular package.
Well, they haven't seen our package yet, and it's a little bit of apples and oranges in terms of trying to compare where the Senate is compared to where the House is. We've taken what I think is a pretty responsible position on state and local governments, making sure that there's liability relief, a number of important things, helping on evictions, a stimulus package, again, individual checks for folks, similar to what happened last April. And we'll see where it takes us. We're going to have probably another caucus meeting today or tomorrow. We'll see if we're unified behind this. We walk people. I'm part of the working group. We walk people through exactly where we were on these. It's still a little bit open for discussion, but we're hoping to make a presentation to Leader Schumer, Speaker Pelosi, as well as Mitch McConnell and Kevin McCarthy, as well as the White House in terms of where we are.
We're talking with Zeeland Congressman Fred Upton. Let's look ahead a little bit for later on today. It'll be brought out, House Resolution 7615, Healthy Workplace Tax Credit, something you are involved with.
Well, it is. This is a bipartisan bill. It provides tax credits off the payroll tax, and it allows a small business to deduct their costs, whether it be the plexiglass partitions, whether it be testing, a number of different things, capped at certain levels based on how many employees that company has, but really for responsible employers that have additional costs that they really had to go, let's give them a tax credit for those steps that they were able to take. Now, very much, years ago, I teamed up and we passed a bill for the Americans with Disabilities Act, a tax credit for businesses, small businesses, that needed to make structural changes, bars in along walls in restrooms, steps, ramps, a number of different things. We knew that a small business did not want to discriminate against a small business or against their customers, but they needed some incentives prior to the Americans with Disabilities Act to actually make those structural changes. And so we did that. This is the same thing. This provides tax credits so that their employees are safe, the workplace is safe, and obviously if it's a place where the customers come in, that they're going to be safe and provide an incentive to make sure that happens.
We're talking with Congressman Fred Upton. It looks as if there will be a continuing resolution to keep the government operational after the end of the month. But as we normally chat with Bill Heising on this, it's he termed it the first thing when he was in the State House, kicking the can down the road. I know that those in Capitol Hill would like to see a spending plan and a budget in place. But right now, you got to play with continuing resolutions.
Well, and of course, continuing resolution, or a CR for short, avoids a shutdown. Remember, we had a shutdown last year for some 35 days before we actually ended up with a CR and moving forward. We don't need a shutdown this month. It appears as though there's an agreement between the Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, i.e. the White House, as well as the leaders in the Congress. They should have the votes to make sure that we don't come to a crashing halt come the end of the month. And actually, this may be the vehicle where we actually try to get this next COVID package attached to really move us forward. Now, the details on that CR, we don't know them yet. We don't know how long it lasts. Does it last till November 15th? Does it last till December 15th? Does it last until March next year? So you got a new Congress then that deals with it. What happens with the debt ceiling? Whole number of different questions. And some of that will be fleshed out in the next week or so. Certainly, I think early next week, when both the House and the Senate are back in session.
One final thing, Fred Upton, I do need to bring this up with you because it might be brought up by some of your constituents as you are campaigning for another 2-year term in the House. Comments attributed to President Trump in the Atlantic and confirmed by the Associated Press in terms of agreeing with what the Atlantic is reporting about comments about our veterans, and that was somewhat disparaging. The president says that's fake news. There are those who are supporters of him that say that the relative furor has died down, meaning that the story really didn't have much legs to go upon it. Whether or not it's true or not, it's hard to say, and really we weren't there, but it is a concern because that's striking at really one of the key things that the president is banking on, the veterans vote.
Well, you're right. I tell you, any comment like that against anyone, man or woman who served as a veteran, is deplorable, despicable, not worth repeating. It's unclear as to whether it's accurate or not. I saw a report this morning that Josh Bolton, certainly not a friend of the president's, who was his national security advisor at the time, said it was patently false a little bit earlier today. So, I don't know where the real piece is, but it would absolutely be a terrible thing for anyone to think, let alone say, as it related to that Veterans Day back in 2018. No question about it.
Yeah, but certainly is a little disconcerting. But then again, those who maybe have an agenda will bring it out and hate to say, you have to take everything almost at, with a grain of salt these days because you just don't know who has an agenda, who doesn't have an agenda.
Well, we do know who has an agenda, and we know that politics sometimes is a pretty rough game.
Yeah, and of course, you know a few of those wars during your time in Washington. Fred Upton joins us most Tuesday mornings, talk about what's going on in D.C. He represents Allegan County in the halls of the U.S. House, and we appreciate him joining us on the Zoom connection from his base of operations in St. Joe. If all goes well, Fred, let's talk next Tuesday morning.
Will do.
Thank you very much. That's Fred Upton on Real News Now, 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.